Okay, we are rolling. We are rolling, brother and sisters. Champions of Champions boxing talk. Well, it's the end of one journey and the start of a new for the legendary senator, boxing icon Manny Pacquiao. You know, I've followed Manny Pacquiao for a long time, and he's the reason I got as much views on my channel as I have. So he obviously transcended beyond boxing to, average or even above average YouTube channels. But my YouTube channel, it generally gets a certain amount of views. But when I was talking about Manny Pacquiao, the views sometimes were massive. The significance of Manny Pacquiao v Errol Spence video I did, that nearly got 200,000 views. I mean, it's astonishing, the popularity of this guy. And not without good reason. Manny Pacquiao was a boxer in a strange time. He was a throwback in an era. He was a guy that would take on anybody, and I mean anybody, in their own back garden of this time, when promoters are so interested in marinating fights, so interested in, stopping the best from fighting the best until it's too late. Manny Pacquiao, even when he was not quite past his, or I should say when he was past his prime, was still trying to fight the best in Keith Thurman, in Ugas, and he tried to fight Errol Spence. It was no fault of Manny Pacquiao that the Errol Spence fight didn't happen, and that was at age 42, guys. Astounding when you think about it. Wasn't it already signed between him and Terence Crawford? It's just it fell apart at the last moment. Astounding. The guy was legendary. And he was an ace-side in boxing that never used hometown advantage. He always fought in America. He fought in Australia. He fought Lucas Matisse abroad as well. This guy was so popular, he could have easily have said to all the other fighters, no, I'm going to dictate the terms. You're going to fight on my turf in the Philippines where the decks are stacked against you. But it was quite the opposite. The A side was willing to give the B side every chance and be fair. And on some occasions, Manny Pacquiao was robbed because of it, wasn't he? The Timothy Bradley fight, Manny never lost that fight. Jeff Horn fight, Manny never really lost that fight. So we've come to this point, and when you just run through the achievements, you could be here for a month. Boxing's only 8-division world champion, 12 world titles across those 8 divisions. The lineal champion, the man who beat the man who beat the man in 5 weight classes, a record. Nobody's done that before. Champion in 4 of the original Glamour divisions. The only man to do that. And what's special about that is they're adding new weight classes in this era. And you get experts who say, well, weight classes now don't mean what they were. But Pacquiao has been a champion in 4 of the original Glamour divisions. So that means he'd stand out as a record breaker in any era from now to back in the day. Never mind just what they're adding weight. You could add as many weight classes now, but he's been a champion in 4 of the original Glamour divisions. That's a guy that fits in at any point, at any time. A historical fighter, no doubt about it. Champion in 4 different decades, which proves longevity. The oldest welterweight champion in history at 40. Now, what's impressive about this, it's much harder for the smaller guys to be great fighters at 40 years of age than it is, say, even a heavyweight. Welterweight champion the most times in boxing history. This guy isn't even a welterweight. And one of the most astonishing ones of all, a ex-flyweight who became the light middleweight champion of the world. Put that in perspective. A flyweight that eventually became champ at 154 pounds. His opponent that night weighed in far more than 154 pounds. And before anybody says the Antonio Margarito fight was a catchweight, Margarito was a huge welterweight, 147 pounder. Pacquiao was the guy that gave him the opportunity for the first time to fight above that limit. 5 pounds above that limit, by the way. You do the math. 147 pound and 152 pound. Then, what did Margarito enter the ring as? Margarito was not drained. He was just outclassed. He was destroyed and outclassed in the same token that night. But he come full circle, didn't he, Manny Pacquiao, from that great 8 division achievement that night at light middleweight to then being, the oldest welterweight champion of all time against Keith Thurman all them years later. That, for me, was the perfect night to bow out of boxing. But I'm not Manny Pacquiao. He's a warrior. He wanted to go out one last time against one of the best, and he did. This is the difference kind of between the ending of Floyd Mayweather's career and the ending of Manny Pacquiao's career. Even though Manny Pacquiao lost his final fight, he busted Ugas up. You look at Ugas. That was a competitive fight, right? That was no 8-4 loss. Again, the judges were ridiculous in that. You could give the fight to Ugas, but it was a close contest, right? Fighting Dennis Ugas or attempting to fight Errol Spence and Keith Thurman is far better than beating YouTubers and Conor McGregor. Losing to those guys is better than beating Conor McGregor, let's face it. So Manny Pacquiao, he will feel, and many will feel, he went out the right way. I just think that it would have been great. I mean, he look at that annihilation of Lucas Matisse. That was a fantastic win. That was an underrated win. Nobody had beaten Lucas Matisse in that fashion before. Don't care what anybody said. And he was still younger than Lucas Matisse. Adrian Broner was 10 years younger than Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao sweeped the victory there. And I'm talking about just the older Manny Pacquiao's achievements, who was an elite fighter at an older age. But the guy who fought from 2006 to 2012, that guy, combined with the achievements of the older version, makes up as one of the greatest fighters in boxing history without question. Where you rank him, if you say to me you rank him top 15, top 20, you've got your opinion there. But if you then say to me you rank him top 10, I'm not going to argue with you. It's difficult to argue with the accomplishments. The victories solidify your legacy. The achievements solidify your legacy. But he's an example to 2 guys that just fought this weekend, isn't he? Ugas, he lost to, obviously, but that was at the end of the road, right? But Usyk and Anthony Joshua, Manny Pacquiao is an example to both for reasons. To Usyk, Manny Pacquiao is the standard of greatness to try and match and beat. He's the standard, Pacquiao. 26-year career, countless achievements, beat all these names, these great fighters. Usyk, that's the guy, if you want to be in the upper echelon come the end of your career, which he will be in his own way. But if he wants to go to Manny Pacquiao, Muhammad Ali, Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard sweepstakes, Manny Pacquiao's the guy he needs to look up to get there. No question about it. But then you go to Anthony Joshua's side. And Manny Pacquiao is the guy that Anthony Joshua, who might be feeling a little down right now, should look up to. Why? Because in those great achievements, Manny Pacquiao overcome adversity. Manny Pacquiao had some crushing defeats. Yes, he did. Some robberies, but also some genuine losses in there. A crushing knockout blow from Marquez. which nearly derailed the biggest fight in boxing history. Fast forward to Anthony Joshua Tyson Fury. That fight looks gone, doesn't it? But if Anthony Joshua has Manny Pacquiao's spirit and Manny Pacquiao's willingness to adapt and learn and grow from here, he can still get to that biggest clash in his career. So Anthony Joshua and Usyk both look up to Manny Pacquiao, should look up to Manny Pacquiao for different reasons. They're still their own fighter. Usyk for what he wants to accomplish. You need look no further than Manny Pacquiao. And he's doing it, Usyk. He's fighting away from home like Manny Pacquiao and beating big stars like Manny Pacquiao. But Anthony Joshua, crushing defeat to Usyk. He need look no further for the inspiration to get back to the top of the hill than Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao did it with losses to Eric Morales, come back and beat Morales twice after in devastating fashion because he developed, didn't he, his right hand perfectly for the rematches. Then the knockout to Marquez. I know the rematch never happened, but he then completely gave Brandon Rios the beating of his life. Was the first guy to officially, even though he beat him before, but he beat then Timothy Bradley, who was pound for pound number 3 at the time. Then he took Chris Algieri's 0, knocking him down 6 times in one of the most one-sided championship fights in boxing history. And then he put himself back in the frame, finally, didn't he? For Floyd Mayweather, the biggest fight in pay-per-view history. It looked over when he got knocked out to Marquez. But the Manny Pacquiao spirit and greatness and growth ability brought him back to the summit. Then, what happened? The Manny Pacquiao-Floyd Mayweather fight, Manny Pacquiao loses on the scorecards. Of the two fighters, you would think, one the warrior, the other the pure boxer, that was Pacquiao's swan song right there, that he wouldn't go on to do much more. You would maybe think, in logical terms, it'd be Mayweather that would go on to break records and win titles against the next generation. But astonishingly, Floyd was retired one fight later, the boxer, and the fighter Manny Pacquiao carried on into his 40s, breaking again records, winning the 5th lineal title against again Timothy Bradley, and then becoming the oldest and most decorated welterweight world champion of all time, and the only guy in history to win world titles in 4 decades. This was after the Floyd Mayweather loss to Floyd Mayweather, the preserved-ish fighter who is a great boxer, retired before Manny Pacquiao. Can you believe that? The fighter outlasted the boxer. That is very rare, ladies and gentlemen, in this sport. Very rare indeed. In fact, I struggle to come up with so many examples of it. That would literally be like Ricky Hatton's career going longer than Joe Calzaghe's. That would be astounding. But Manny Pacquiao outlasted. Manny Pacquiao was still fighting after Andre Ward retired. Can you believe it? This is the stuff legends are made of. And I'm not knocking Floyd Mayweather. I'm not one of them that says Floyd Mayweather isn't any good. He was great in his own way. But Manny Pacquiao, he is a one-off. And he was the smaller guy in the vast majority of fights he had. So if you're taking L's, let me tell you, when you try... he won titles in 8 weight classes, but he spawned more than 10. Going across 10 weight classes in 72 fights, that aim for greatness, you're going to pick up some losses along the way. You're going to go 5 steps forward and then you're going to go 1 back. But what was important to Manny was, when he went 1 back, he was still 4 ahead of the game. And he kept going and going and going. To a legacy like Manny Pacquiao, he transcends defeat. What makes him great is he can beat defeat, like Muhammad Ali. Again, he's a throwback fighter, a guy that could take L's in an era which is very scared to take L's and still come back firing. Because in life, guys, Manny Pacquiao is a reflection in the boxing ring to all of us. But we will take L's in life. You know, not everybody can live, very few people live a plain sailing life where they're born, cradle to grave, everything perfect, everything laid out, no troubles, no adversity. We face L's. But it's how we bounce back. And Anthony Joshua, on the comeback, should know Manny Pacquiao is that great example. But us as human beings, when we take L's, rejections, job opportunities lost, you name it, you know, injuries when we're trying to prepare for athletic events, losses in general. Manny Pacquiao is the guy that says, hey, there's a rope to climb this mountain still. There's a way back. And if you can overcome losses, it strengthens your character to something. It gives you a spiritual level of growth that a perfect life probably can never do. Because here's the myth, guys. There is no perfect life. But Manny Pacquiao shows through belief, development, strength, honor, you can make it as perfect as you want, despite adversity. So, he transcends the sport. He's an Ali, again, he's a Muhammad Ali stroke. You know, Muhammad Ali stroke quiet character boxer, if that, you know, he doesn't have the same personality as Muhammad Ali. But this example beyond the boxing ring, the transcendency beyond the boxing ring, is very Ali-esque. If you were to say what fighter of the past 26 years is the closest in transcending boxing to Muhammad Ali, it would be Manny Pacquiao. Because Muhammad Ali, didn't he, overcame some massive adversity. Not only defeats in the boxing ring, defeats in the political realm, which is where Manny Pacquiao is entering. And he came out a record breaker, like Manny Pacquiao. And some people regard Muhammad Ali as the greatest boxer of all time. Many do. Manny Pacquiao will be happy tonight knowing that people talk about him being in the same realm as Muhammad Ali. You know, he would be upset losing the fight of the century to Floyd Mayweather because Manny Pacquiao is a winner. But if you said to him, as a young Filipino coming to the United States, one day, kid, people are going to talk about you as the Filipino Muhammad Ali, the greatest heavyweight of all time. They're going to talk about you as being a transcendent figure in the sport of boxing, like Muhammad Ali. He wouldn't have believed you, first of all, but he'd have been delighted when it comes true. Manny Pacquiao to this generation is what Messi and Ronaldo are to football. Two great characters we may never see in football again. And Manny Pacquiao is a guy that we may never see in boxing again. But if you are on the downward slope, he's the guy to look up to, because he managed to rise again. And if you want to achieve greatness up the mountain, he's also the guy to look up to. And that alone is unique. So congratulations, Manny Pacquiao. Enjoy your retirement. No matter what the L column says, the victory column said much more. And your legacy in boxing is immortal. Father Time catches them all, but Manny Pacquiao's legacy has defeated Father Time. And this is Champions of Champions Boxing Talk. I'm out, brother! And sisters.